Hello everyone, it's Shane Kanto, your Wasteland reviewer, and I'm here to review The Conjuring, Last Rites, and this is the final film in the Conjuring horror franchise here as we tackle the last big mission of the Warrens, and this is from director Michael Chavez, who worked on a few more of these Conjuring universe films, including The Curse of La Llorona and The Nun 2, and here takes the reins of the series proper with Vera Farmiga and Patrick Wilson coming back as the Warrens, this couple. And you also have Bo Gadsden, who plays one of the girls in here, Mia Tomlinson, who plays Judy, the daughter of the Warrens, and Ben Hardy, her the love of her life, her soon-to-be fiance, and you have this whole dynamic where this film balances the horrible things happening to this Smurl family, and more importantly and more deeply focused on the trauma that the Warrens are going through themselves. Because from the start, this film sets things up with this opening, like this cold open of this eerie, demonic mirror that really sets the tone. We have a younger version of Ed and Lorraine, and there's a birthing sequence that changes the Warrens' life forever. And this is a great way of bringing in their daughter character more deeply into the story. Obviously, she was a part of Annabelle Comes Home, but here she's really deeply part of this as she's starting to have these same visions like her mother, and that complexity. This film has a lot of heart and soul as we focus on Ed and Lorraine. Ed dealing with heart issues, Lorraine struggling with her daughter, being succumbed to these urges, these visions that she has. And I really liked Tomlinson and Hardy and their dynamic. I thought that was very sweet, and I think that adds some good layers to this film for sure, and really sells this whole experience of what's really going on with this family as they're pulled unexpectedly into this Smurl case. And I feel like they could have done a better job of fleshing out the Smurls, giving them a little bit more depth. They're not quite as fully realized as the first two Conjuring films, but it's the story of the Warrens that I feel like really anchors this film down and brings the emotional core to it, which I think they do a great job of delivering a satisfying and emotionally resonant experience here, and all the things that the Warrens go through and what they have to accomplish to save this family and save their own. And that becomes an increasingly challenging element. I think from you look at from technical standpoints and stuff like that, there's some really inspired work by Benjamin Wallfish, who is the composer of this. It is eerie, it's unnerving. You have Eli Bourne, who's a cinematographer who I think works well with Chavez and creates some really unnerving moments throughout the film. There's some good scares here for sure. I don't think this is anywhere near as scary as Conjuring or Conjuring 2, but it's hard to live up to that expectation. And I think this film does a really fine job with what it's trying to do. And I think one big detractor, though, is at the very end it has all this text about the Warrens and all the great things that they did and trendsetters, and leaves out the fact that they're pretty much charlatans and not a lot of these things have any proof. But here in this Conjuring universe, the Warrens are actually wonderful people and doing the Lord's work. And I appreciate how this film really gives that weight to the Warren family. I do feel like this other family becomes a bit of a afterthought, and I feel like they could have fleshed out the characters of this family better. But as this story comes full circle and the Warrens are pulled into this whole situation, the filmmaking really works. It's quite impressive, and you have some of the scares are so well staged and eerie, and you have all these elements that come together. Sure, this could have used a little bit tighter of a script. maybe a little bit more depth for some of these characters, but it does kind of feel like a little bit deeper and more challenging kind of like Monster of the Week kind of experience. But at the end of the day, the heart and soul of this film is this family, the Warrens, or daughter Judy, and how all of that fits together into this lifestyle that they have. And it's endearing seeing this budding relationship, how Patrick Wilson's Ed kind of like breaks down and starts supporting him in different ways. And overall, I think this is a really satisfying finale to this series. And it could have been better. There's certainly some places where they could have, improved some of the visuals. I feel like this film is sorely missing James Wan. I think there's some of those little elements of like a dark sense of humor, and they can work well, but here it just really feels like this film is missing all of the elements of those first two films that really make it stand out. But I do feel like this is certainly, between this and the third one, the one that feels really like we're watching Alien again and really getting into that experience. But I think The Conjuring Last Rites is a really good conclusion to this story with plenty heart, soul, because we really get to learn more about the Warrens themselves, or at least the fictionalized versions, unlike the ones that they try to sell you at the end of the film. But in general, this is an emotional ride, and if you're invested already to the other films, this will definitely hit. You get some good scares, some good setup. This is not mind-blowing or a game changer, but it is something that deserves some praise. Those are my thoughts on The Conjuring Last Rites. Let me know what you think, and let's talk some movies. But thank you as always for tuning in and supporting your Wasteland reviewer.